Hello, welcome back. My name is Daniel Gormali. Welcome back to my channel, Hometown Chess Hero. And today I want to talk about a game I had the other day against one of England's rising stars in the chess world, which is Shreyas Royal. Well, Shreyas, I believe, was originally from India, born in India, but he moved out to England. There was a bit of a fuss made about the fact that him and his family wanted to stay in England, and they managed to do so because originally I think the visa meant that he would be forced to go back to India. The family would be forced to go back to India, and I think the problem with that would have been in India they have a number of very good chess players, obviously. In England, less so. Certainly these days, in the past it might have been the other way around. So he possibly would have been lost or overlooked. Whereas in England, obviously he's prioritised because he's the best of his generation. So that's a positive thing. And, it's very important that we keep hold of people like Shreyas because I would say it's a damning indictment when you look at the, for example, the World Rapid and Blitz recently. There were no English players in that tournament. There's no English players in Vacanze at the moment. So you would have to say that English chess is on the downtrend. You look at the World Rapid and Blitz, there were players from Germany, Poland, United States, obviously India, China as well. All sorts of different countries. Poland, probably Turkey was represented. I think there was hardly any players, certainly no very strong players from England. So you're looking at the younger players really to potentially represent England in the future in these kind of competitions. So you're looking at people like Shreyas. But yeah, when all that fuss was made over that, whether we go back to India, whether the family would be sent back to India, but fortunately there was a campaign and they stayed. It was kind of overlooked the fact that he was such a strong player anyway, so a lot of fuss was made about that, but obviously for his age he was very, very strong. And that's continued because now he's starting to get GM norms, and he played very well at Hastings, played very well in the London Classic, got GM norm there. So, yeah, I played against Shreyas, and I mentioned this in the blog that I wrote, so I've got a blog called The Chess Test. I'll link it below in the description. A few days ago, I played in the Four Nations Chess League. No, it wasn't as disappointing. Hastings, in some ways, it felt that way. Go on to say, as far as I can ascertain, Shreyas is working pretty hard on chess. Seems to have been earmarked as possible successor to likes of Michael Adams as being a dominant player in English chess. Of course, the ambition should be to ultimately compete at the world level, not just beat up on fellow British players and tournaments like the English Championship and British Championships. Exactly, because ultimately, people like Adams, who plays the British a lot now, but when he got to the peak of his career, he was mainly playing abroad. It'd be quite boring and limiting if all you did really was winning the British Championships every year. But still, they're nice tournaments to win, and it's nice to have that on your CV, and it's great for your record. Adams is building a phenomenal record of winning the British Championships. I think he's potentially going to overtake Jonathan Penrose, who is on 10 wins. Adams, I believe, is on 8. So he needs 2 more to tie and 3 more to overtake. But it could actually be someone like Shreyas, ironically enough, who could stop him from breaking that record, because over the next 2 or 3 years, you would imagine that Shreyas would be a contender in the British Championships as well. Adams is a good comparison. The player that I feel Shreyas is closest to in a way is Luke McShane. Exactly, because he drew a lot of hype, he was like son of a journalist called Rod McShane. I met them for the first time. I believe when Luke was about 6. I was 14. So I'm about 8 years older. I think I played him when he was very young, and he was already very good, Luke. So, yeah, when you look at a lot of these talented players, you do think about Luke McShane because there was a lot of hype around him. So I played Luke a lot when he was younger, and actually played in a lot of tournaments with him. I remember playing Politic and Cup with Luke sometime in maybe late 1990s. And I remember we used to play a lot of blitz and it was fairly close. And one day he said, like, I'm going to play without seeing the board. You see the board, I don't see the board. I was like, wow, there's no way they'll beat me then. Right, I'm seeing the board in a blitz game. He can't see the board. And he beat me 5-0. I was like really astounded, you know. It shows the level of his ability that he was able to do that. But yeah, he went on to become a very strong player. But obviously, he didn't quite fulfill the potential that a lot of people expected, which was to become world chess champion, because it's very hard to become world chess champion. There's 7 billion people in the world. There's only one world chess champion, right? So it's just very, very difficult. Anyway, so that's what I was saying. I also mentioned the concern, surely from an English chess players fan perspective, is that look, younger players like Shreyas and Bodhana, who's having phenomenal success in the moment. There's also players like Freddie Gordon and I think it's Supertip Banjari, who I lost to in the Hastings Blitz tournament. Phenomenal player at the age of about 9 or 10. They are probably the most promising players we've had for a long time. Now, the danger is, in my opinion, and this is partly why I think that Malcolm Payne and Dominic Lawson are making such an effort to secure government funding, is if you don't show an interest in what they're doing, there is a danger, in my opinion, that other federations will come in and snatch them off you. You know, federations like United States of America, for example, have, you know, unlimited funds. If they see a promising player, they could well go for that player. We've seen Faustino Oroz, another super kid. He's only 10 years of age. He's already jumped ship from Argentina to Spain. Obviously, he's Spanish speaking, you know, Spanish kind of background in a way. So that's kind of an understandable shift. And obviously, he's going to Spain because there's a lot more tournaments there than there are in South America. So, and a lot more tournaments in Europe in general, I would say. So yeah, that is a slight danger. I mean, this is just speculation on my part. I don't know of any kind of overtures made from another federation, but you have to be concerned, you know, when you look at some of the recent history about players moving across. If you show no interest in building your federation, I think this is why we've slipped back in recent years. We haven't had the money invested in chess. That's what I was saying. You know, we haven't had players playing in the top tournaments. You know, and eventually you get to the point where, well, England's not doing very well on chess. Why don't I go to another federation that seems to care about chess, right? So it's good that we're having this positivity at the moment. So hopefully Shreyas will continue to improve. I'm sure he will. I played him in this game. Let's just quickly look at the game. I was black. I decided to play the Grunfeld because I think that's quite a good opening to play. It's quite solid. Yeah, and I went for this d5 moves, obviously the mainline Grunfeld. And during the game, I was expecting him to play this because I saw he had a lot of games in this variation, and normally he would play bishop c4, but he played bishop d2. He said he prepared it before for another tournament. So he went bishop d2, and played bishop g7. I played move c5. Now, I'm not sure if that was a good move or not. It seemed to lead to a reasonable position, actually. So maybe it's not that bad. But I remember during the game I had some kind of memories of losing some game. Haven't had many games in this variation with bishop d2. But I remember losing a game during the lockdown to this guy online in one of these pandemic tournaments and thinking that the guy was a computer cheat. Because he sort of went d5 and then I went for this e6 break later and he got this isolated pawn. I remember thinking it's one of these kind of people who seemed a bit sus about them being a computer cheat. So I was worried that Shreyas had maybe seen this game and based his preparation around this game, where I seemed to get a really worse position with black in that blitz game. And I couldn't really remember that game anyway. So I was like, yeah, this is the worry that you have now, is that people can actually access your online games as well. And if they see holes in your repertoire, they're going to exploit it. You know, for example, I had a game against John Ems a few years ago in Torquay. And I think he'd seen that I'd had some slightly dodgy games in a particular variation of C3 Sicilian. Prepped up for it and won very easily in the opening. Anyway, I'm going to quickly get to the critical positions. In knight d7, it's possible that white could have played knight e2 here, for example. I don't know. That was another possibility. But then black plays knight f6. So I'm not sure if that was a big improvement on the game or not. But he went knight f3, which is very natural looking. Yeah, and again, I'm not sure whether I played the best move here. Possibly queen d6 immediately was a possibility. But I went bishop f5, which is not terrible. Well, what I was concerned about here was dark square's weaknesses around the king. Because once you exchange up the dark square bishop, obviously you've got this weak king side. However, at the moment, it's not very easy for white to attack that king side. Because if white plays, for example, queen h6 at some point, you can either play queen f6 intending to meet knight g5 and queen g7. Or you can sometimes even just go f6, just preventing the knight from reaching that square. So it's not really a problem at the moment for him to start attacking me, but it's something to bear in mind for the future. He went rook e1, very natural move. That's kind of what I was expecting during the game. It's a good move. Bear in mind, I think Shreyas is an underrated player. Yeah, I do think he's a lot stronger than 24. I mean, his rating is 2404. That is not his FIDE rating anyway. His FIDE rating is about 25 to 450. But I think that was his ECF rating. But in any case, he's much stronger already than a normal 2400 player. I'd say he's over 2500. So where exactly, I don't know. But he's clearly going to be a player that's going to be like 2600 plus in the future. Hopefully get very high. Obviously, you know, let's not speculate too much. We don't want to put any more pressure. But yeah, he's clearly doing very well. So yeah, the ratings are deceptive here. I'm probably overrated. So that's but I went queen f6, which is not a terrible move. Actually, I think these ratings are like based on the ratings when the foreign CL first started, maybe. Because I'm 2445. So they just count the same rating. They don't rate it like that, but they just list it like that. Something. I went queen f6. Yeah, maybe queen d6 was better. That's what I was thinking. But I was worried about this move. And I miscalculated this variation. I thought that f6 was bad because of knight h4, but bishop d3. I looked at variations like this, and I thought this is bad. Because rook f7, I was afraid of this move, and then especially rook e8. But apparently none of this works. I can't remember why, but it looks kind of scary in the game, right? I mean, you could also go simply play c4, which is a good move after queen d6. So I went queen f6, wasn't sure about it. It had a very interesting possibility here, which I think he saw, but declined to play, which was queen f4, queen c3. And then you go, I think, is it g4 here? You push the bishop back, and then you start kicking the bishop again. Maybe like knight e5. There's also rook c1 coming into the equation. But rook c1 is queen b4. But then rook c4, right? Yeah, maybe. But yeah, very, very sharp variation. So he could have actually sacked a pawn here. I was actually concerned about that during the game. I was afraid of queen f4. However, the move he played was pretty reasonable. Knight e5. Very natural move, very safe move. You don't need to burn all your bridges by sacking pawns already. I went rook e8, and again I was still afraid of this move, queen f4. But queen f4, as he rightly pointed out afterwards, queen d6 might have been a good reply to queen f4. Because if g4, then for example, g4, I think you can even just go f6, right? Maybe there's something else as well. f6. And if you take, then take. With either the rook or the pawn. There's another variation, actually, I think he did mention, which was rook d8. As well. With the idea of taking the rook. And that's also very, very sharp and unclear variation. You know, I was concerned in the game about moves like knight g4. Not being able to calculate very well. I was concerned about moves like knight g4, but then you take and take on c3. It's not so clear. So he went f4, very natural move. I went rook d8 again, very natural move. Rook d1, yeah, continuing the natural move theme. Queen d6, which was a reasonable kind of a move, not a terrible move. Because I want to go f6. I'm afraid of this knight. I'm afraid he'll build an attack around this knight. So I want to kick the knight away with f6. He went knight c4, good move. Yeah, and possibly the computer says here that maybe the most accurate to trade and go queen a6. But I went queen a6, which maybe he should keep both rooks on with knight e3. That might have been a good practical try, but he took, which is again reasonable. There were no big mistakes in this game, actually. Not like my normal games. Just like one blunder after another. But again, when you're playing good players, often you're more focused because you're aware that they're strong. And they're going to punish your mistakes. So, you know, the fear is there, that, or not the fear, I would say, but the respect is there, the awareness that they're going to punish any silly moves. So I often probably perform better against stronger opposition, in a way. Yeah, so I went bishop d7, and I was thinking that he could play d6 in the game, but he pointed out that bishop a4 was a good reply to d6. And that's a good reply. Yeah, and then rook d8 is coming. I think that was the best move, wasn't it? What was the engine saying here? Yeah, knight g4, but then rook d8. Yeah, she gets very sharp. You go here. You can't take because you're losing. Well, you're not losing, but it's a little bit dodgy. You can go rook d8. Yeah. Very. Oh wow! So it gives like rook d8, knight h6. Knight takes f7. It's crazy, right? King takes queen d5 check. Monster variations. So yeah, very dangerous for both sides, to be honest with you. But also I was thinking about after d6 whether I could have played the move. Queen a4 I was also considering, actually, with the threat of rook e3, but maybe then he goes knight d5. Yeah, he goes knight d5, king g7, c4. And the whole idea of this is what the weakness now is starting to tell. You know, the weakness is on the dark side. This is what I was saying I was concerned about earlier. And you need to play very accurately as black. And the other move I was considering was bishop c6, but apparently that's not the best. I think actually king g7 here is okay. Or even f6 is okay. Was it f6? Yeah, f6 is okay. And then after here, you just go here. I think I even saw something like that in the game, weirdly enough, even though it looks very unnatural. Yeah. Anyway, none of that happened. Yeah, d6, bishop c6 I was considering, but I think that's bad for some reason. Ah, f5, yeah, just chunk. Chunk away, yeah, simple, natural move. So actually, if we'd gone d6, I might well have reacted badly, because bishop c6 was one of the moves I was considering, so it would have been a very big test. But it's hard to know what order to throw this move in. You know, I think that h3, from a practical perspective, was maybe a slight mistake, because, you know, it just gives black an extra move to kind of recover a little bit, rather than I feel like white should be pressing now. So yeah, so I understood this idea in a way. I thought if I go, for example, if I go here, intending this rook e3 idea again, he goes here. You know, lining up these. If I take, I take. So it's not just to give the king a square, it's actually to give the knight a square as well. And when I go queen d7, he goes f5. And he's fighting. So in this position I went h5, which is obviously a slightly weakening move. I was slightly happy. Actually, the best move is king g7, apparently. I think that was better. Which actually, funny enough, was a move I didn't really even consider in the game. Actually, was king g7 good? Yeah. Slight edge for black even, the computer says. And again, king g7 here was the correct way, which, funny enough, is a move I didn't even consider, even though it's very natural, because you're getting out of all these knight checks later on f6. Idea is moving the knight away, bringing the queen to h6. Very important to put the king on h6. King on g7, sorry. I went here. Yeah, and this is where I thought you could take. And I was concerned about this. And sorry, no, you went d6, which is correct, or looks correct. And I was concerned that he would take. But now you have to be very careful, because if you take with the pawn, well, you could take either way, but there's only one way which is good, I think. So if you take with a pawn, I was concerned about this move knight c4. Again, gets very sharp, because the idea of knight c4 is he wants to go knight a5, he wants to exchange a bishop. and then play with a queen and rook against queen and rook, but he's got the d-pawn, which is a massive asset, and there were lots of variations like that in the game. Now I was concerned that after something like this I'd just be losing. Rook d8, there's stuff like rook f1 or queen d6. Doesn't look good. The black, I'm too exposed on my king side as well. So apparently the best move is queen e6. That was a move I did consider during the game when I was calculating it. But after knight a5, actually I showed this to some of my teammates later. And Zoe Varney found queen e6, and she also found the best move bishop a4, where apparently it's now equal according to the computer. It's still very complicated. You go something like knight b7, bishop d1, d7, and the best move is bishop a4. Wow, crazy, right? And you can take, make a queen, but then queen c4 at the end, and you're holding. Tough to see all that. So that would have been a very dangerous variation. I was kind of surprised he didn't take on g6. I thought it was kind of good move to throw in because it weakens the king. So I was kind of relieved that he didn't do that. And what he did was fine as well. No, he didn't take. Yeah, the other problem is if you take with a queen, and this is really not obvious at all when you calculate during the game. Computer comes up with a very strong idea here. So there's variations on knight d5, but apparently they're not that great. It looked very dangerous. So I was concerned about knight d5 when I was calculating this in the game. But knight d5, you can survive. Drive to survive, like that Formula 1 show, right? But queen f2 is just very, very powerful, and the main idea is... Yeah, I should have told you to pause the video and thought about it, but I didn't. Rook e3, which looks like a good counter attack, is d7. Is actually winning, because after this, we have to take, otherwise you allow the queen. White will be technically winning. So none of that happened. The game kind of fizzled out as it happened. Shreyas played d7. I took. He could have gone knight d5, but it was a bit of a gamble. He decided just to chop everything off. And there was only one trick here, that if I take here, I've got to be very careful, because I think here is winning for white, as he pointed out. Because queen f6, I don't think, do you go here? Because he mentioned this. Yeah, you can actually win with this, yeah. Because this past a pawn, he mentioned this line that you can force the queens off, which is a very nice line. But even just taking the rook, I mean, as soon as I saw this far, and I thought, well, he's taking the rook. I don't really want to look any further because I'm a rook down, right? You know, okay, maybe I've got a draw by perpetual check, but it doesn't look very likely. So so that's why I went rook c2, and I'm very close to playing taken on h3. I went rook c2, and the game fizzled out. He went for the check, and he hasn't really got enough to win the game now. And yeah, he could try and find a way to play on, but his king is also slightly exposed as well to checks on c1, and maybe the queen could switch to the diagonal from b8 to h2 and give a check there sometimes. So it's not like if he tries to risk it and tries to sort of play on, you know, he would be risking it. So that was my game with Shreyas Royal, who I think is a very, very promising player, and you know, he's probably the main banner. Him and Bodhana are the main banner holders for English chess over the next few years, and I'm sure there'll be other players as well for English chess. There's also Supertip Banjari and Freddie Gordon, who are fantastic players, who currently representing Scotland. I'm slightly concerned that we might poach them, actually, the English Chess Federation, because I think it would be better if they stick with Scotland. For them, you know, Scottish chess is also something that needs representing as well. But anyway, the future in English chess looks incredibly bright, so that's really good news. And again, yeah, thanks for watching my video. Please like and subscribe, and please check out the blog as well that I'll post a link to below.